Welcome to the Midlife Mavericks podcast, where we empower men in their prime to redefine what it means to thrive beyond 40. Join us as we navigate the complexities of midlife, offering insights, strategies, and inspiration to reclaim your health, vitality, and purpose. From personal stories of transformation to expert interviews and actionable tips, each episode is designed to support you on your journey to live the best life in your midlife and beyond. Get ready to unleash your inner maverick and embrace the adventure of aging with grace, strength, and purpose. Today, we're joined by Aaron Griffiths, a coach who's on a mission to blend physical and mental health to enhance how his clients think and move. Aaron's journey is truly inspiring. After hitting rock bottom as a burnt-out, alcoholic, and out-of-shape lawyer, he made the decision to turn his life around. For the past 5 years, Aaron has dedicated himself to daily movement, meditation, and breathwork practices. Now, he feels stronger and more at peace than ever. In 2020, Aaron felt a calling to share these practices with others. He sold his law firm and began creating affordable, accessible resources to help people learn about movement, meditation, and breathwork. During this episode, Aaron opens up about some of his darkest moments, and it's incredible to see the transformation he's achieved by deciding to change his life. I was truly moved by Aaron's story, and I'm sure you will be too. Enjoy listening to this episode. Aaron, welcome to Midlife Mavericks.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Mate, I'm rapt to have you on the show. I've been following you for a little while on social media. We've got a few mutual friends, so I've seen a little bit of your journey, but would love to dig in and learn a lot more. So can't wait to connect.
Absolutely. Keen to share.
All right, mate, let's get the ball rolling. A little bit of an easy one to start off with. If we were to sit next to each other on an aeroplane, where would that aeroplane be heading? Do you have a favorite holiday destination or a bucket list place you want to go?
Oh, probably to a surf trip in Indonesia. That would be lovely.
Awesome.
But I've got a few bucket list places I'd like to see that I haven't done yet. I'd love to see some of Africa and some of South America. So they're definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, wicked, mate. Yeah, I've never been to South Africa or South America or any of that sort of places either. So I've been to Indonesia a few times, but I'm not a huge surfer, unfortunately. But sounds like you might do a few surfing trips in it every now and again.
Yeah, every now and then.
Yeah, awesome, mate. All right, part two of that question. If we were sitting on this aeroplane off to Indonesia or South Africa and we were to spark up a conversation, if I was to ask you about, what is your purpose and passion right now, what would you say?
Oh, well, this is a juicy one. But I would say, first and foremost, just being the best human I can be, possibly, I would say is my purpose. And right now, that's manifesting in the form of helping people move better and to think better and to combine elements of physical and mental health. Just to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, awesome, man. I love that. And I can't wait to dive deeper into that and hear more about it and maybe how you sort of came to that purpose and passion. But before we sort of do, crack into that a little bit, I've seen a little bit of your story and I know a little bit of your history. I know that you were once a high-flying lawyer and had your own firm. So I'm curious to know, what got you into being a lawyer in the first place? What was the initial draw to that profession?
I was Tom Cruise primarily. A Few Good Men. It must have been mid-90s, and Tom Cruise he's still going, but A Few Good Men, when he put Colonel Jessup on the stand and he said, "Did you order the code red?" You're goddamn right, I did. Something about that movie and the way he was handsome and charming and smart and charismatic and, always gets the babe. Money's not a problem. And there was sort of a glamour to it in the courtroom. And so I was 16 at the time when the career advisor said, "Here, you've got to choose something." So I ticked law as number one, PE teacher number two, and I can't even remember what number three was. And they were encouraging me to go to uni. My dad always said, "Don't be a blue collar guy like me. Get a white collar and sit down for a living because it's much easier on your back." So I ticked law, and that was the extent of my thought process and research into it. I didn't know any lawyers. I'd never met a solicitor in my life. I'd never been in a law firm, and off I went at 18, straight out of school, straight into uni, into a 4-year degree, and then I think you just get deeper and deeper into something, these long-term projects. You're like, well, I can't sort of turn back now. I just got to see it through. And then, of course, when I made it to the workplace, I remember calling my mum in the first week going, Mum, is this right? What's happening? And she said, describe what's it like? And I said, oh, well, everybody's really sad for one. Everybody is so sort of dark, and it's very serious, and people are really unhappy, and it's so boring. I was falling asleep at my desk. I was struggling to stay awake. And she said, no, that's normal. That sounds just like normal life. You'll get used to it. Give it a few years. And yeah, that was sort of how I got into it.
Wow. Yeah. Geez, what an interesting way to become a lawyer, mate. The fact that you sort of never really thought about it too much, ticked a box and followed that path.
I know. I think it maybe being a good communicator. I always did well in English. I was not very good at mathematics and physics and the more logical stuff like that. And the great thing about law is it's not overly logical. As you can tell by the way our justice system operates, it's full of inconsistencies. So as long as you can just, you're pretty good at spinning a yarn and you're good at the bullshit, you can generally get by. So that was another, it just sort of lended itself to my natural abilities, and it didn't really require me to use mathematics.
Yeah. I'm sure you excelled at that, mate. So
yeah, killed it.
Killed it. So how long were you in the lawyer business for?
Well, straight out of uni, so 18, I went into study, and while I was at uni, I did, some blue collar work to get through. I did demolition work, worked on a road gang, and did some civil construction and jobs like that to fund my way through uni, and then straight into the workforce at the end of that 4-year degree, early 20s, right through up until 2020. So I went on to start my own practice, built my own law firm from scratch, had that for 10 years, and then I sold it in 2020 and got out.
Yeah, it's a fair time, mate. What were some of the biggest challenges you reckon you faced working as a lawyer and having your own business?
There was a lot. Working as a lawyer was very different to running my own business, because really it was dealing with your managers and your bosses and the people up above you that was often the hardest part of being an employee, more so than the work itself. Even though that was incredibly stressful and difficult, it's a tough profession to start out in, because you're more or less told when you get there into the workforce that, okay, just because you went to uni, it doesn't mean you know anything. In fact, you're a liability to us, and the receptionist over there is more valuable to me than you. So you kind of start this brutal apprenticeship from day one, and it's very old school, sort of, well, when I went through anyway, where you sort of kept in the dark, and that mushroom culture, kept in the dark and fed shit, and so it's a pretty hard industry to get going in. Starting my own law firm came with a whole different myriad of challenges, because I had to understand how to manage people, how to do marketing and sales and accounting and bookkeeping, and how this all needs to come together to create a great business that has systems. And so that was just an entirely different challenge, but I really enjoyed that, because it taught me other skills other than just the technical skills of being a lawyer.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, it's always a different challenge when you have to manage people, isn't it? Changes the game a lot when you become the boss.
Very, very difficult. And I had this utopian fantasy that I'd create this wonderful place where everyone would just get along, because I'm in control of it now, and because I'm a good guy and I'm friendly and nice and kind, then of course everyone that works for me will be like that, and we're going to live in this utopia. And yeah, that's just not how human nature works. There's always dynamics. People clash. Even I had a team of women, so I learnt at a certain time of the month things could get a little bit more emotional than others. So becoming aware of cycles and how women can synchronize
Yep.
hormonally
Yep.
was it paid to actually pay attention to those cycles, just so that you could um, have a bit more awareness about when we'd have flare-ups.
Yeah. Plan your holidays, mate.
Yeah, just
I didn't say that. I mean,
I've got a long lunch to go to. I'll see you later.
Yeah, all those extra challenges, mate, for sure. It's such a big change. Like you've obviously gone and spent a long time, working in corporate and working as a lawyer and, managing people. And now, you've switched over into like more sort of health and well-being and mindset. So like at the time when you're in the thick of it, being this lawyer, like in the back of your mind, were you thinking about your health and well-being, or how was your health and well-being?
Well, I think it was, I struggled in my 20s a lot, just with the transition from uni was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends, big social groups. I played rugby. And then, of course, you sort of phase out of things like, as a male anyway, rugby, sort of mid 20s, you start to stop playing those sports because the injury toll and the risk profile no longer really becomes palatable when you take on a mortgage, or you got to be at work now, you've got responsibilities. So you sort of let go of these things that keep you connected socially, and start to stay home more, and not hang out with my mates as much. And so I think it was a downhill slope through my 20s. I never used to drink a lot in my 20s except the binge after the game. But then as I became more homebodied, you take on a mortgage, and you become more domesticated. The alcohol starts to come in more. So I think it was sort of a little bit of a downhill slope mentally through my 20s. And then I actually started the firm out of a tragic situation that we had personally, where my wife at the time was in a really horrific head-on collision on the Sunshine Motorway, and and she was nearly killed. And the really odd thing about it was that a few years prior, I'd had a very strange event, which I would call, probably looking back, a mystical moment, where I couldn't understand it at the time. But I was in bed with her, and we were both young professionals working, and I had this dream that she was killed in a car accident, and it was very highly visual. One of those dreams where everything's so visceral and real, in the dream, witnessing this, I then fell down on the road and died myself, and had this weird out of body experience where I went back into the nothingness of the oneness of the cosmos and the universe, where there was no, it's very difficult to even describe because there was no physicality to it, no color, no visuals at all. It was just purely an awareness of oneness. And in that moment, my deceased grandmother came to me. This is all in a dream, mind you.
Yeah.
And we had a moment together, and she said, "You're not supposed to be here." And I fell, and I had this horrible dropping feeling. And I woke up in my bed, and I was choking. I couldn't breathe, and I fell out of bed, and I was just blue. I literally felt like I had died. And it really shook me up for a week or two. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about the experience of it was the first time I thought about what are we, these beings? Are we more than just this body? Is there something animating us? Is that the soul or the spirit? And did I experience some sort of transcendent spiritual dimension beyond the physical realm, beyond the 3D confines of matter and form? And so I kind of just eventually processed it and forgot about it. I didn't understand it. And then 3 years later, I'm sitting there, and I get a phone call from a policeman, and my wife had been in an accident. And as I got to the scene, the deja vu was, I'd seen this sort of premonition of the wreck in the car, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's gonna be dead. And I got there and she was in the ambulance. It was Valentine's Day, horrific injuries, head-on collision, so barely hanging in there. And she had a stroke in my arms, watched her face go limp down one side and the whole left side of her body slumped. And it was just such a intense moment. And she got airlifted to hospital. Thankfully, was in intensive care for a long time and massive recovery, but she survived.
Wow.
And so I wasn't really sure how this linked up to the dream, other than I'd seen parts of it in this weird premonition. Um, and then not long after that, we're in the middle of the GFC. I got made redundant, and so I was at home caring for her, and I needed to find work. And that's when I thought, well, I'm not going to be a good employee if I've always got to duck out to the hospital. I need something that I can control. And a few clients reached out and asked me to do jobs for them. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to create the business out of necessity because I can do it in my boardies on my laptop at home while I'm in that home with her. And that was really how the law firm started.
Yeah, wow. Mate, what an incredible story. It's crazy that you can reflect back on that and sort of remember that dream and go through that experience too. It must have been such a challenging time, and such a scary time.
It was, and the profound effect it had on me was just I couldn't stop thinking about the nature of existence and
Mm.
what really are we, and all those big questions started to come up. Why are we here, and what are we doing, and what really matters?
Mm.
Um, so it created a curiosity within me about spirituality and about more than just um, making money and being a lawyer. And
Mm.
so that sort of gave me a few different questions to start exploring and pondering. And uh, unfortunately, it wouldn't be for some time until I made those a priority. And starting the law firm was incredibly difficult. And in the process, I pretty much burnt out and became an alcoholic and um, became very depressed. And I wasn't training, was out of shape and really not looking after myself. And this led to fortunate enough to have two beautiful children, but
Yeah.
me prioritizing work so heavily, because in my brain, to provide for my injured wife, I just be the breadwinner and really crush it and make enough for two. So I put so much energy into that, and in the process, didn't cope very well with my own mental health, and just became a raging alcoholic basically. And
Mm.
unfortunately, that contributed to the end of my marriage and going through a divorce and losing um, the privilege of living with my kids full
Mm.
time was just devastating. And that's kind of when I hit the rock bottom moment. And yeah, there's a story to go along with that as well. But when that was probably the real start of the health journey, because I just reached a point where I couldn't go on as I was,
Yeah.
and decided I have to change. And so it was after that that the health stuff came into it.
That's incredible, mate. I think it's like such a relatable story. Like I grew up playing Aussie rules footy, and same sort of deal. That was my good connection with my mates. And then you go to work and you sort of start to lose that connection and you focus. And I suppose a partner, married, kids, your mortgage, like you're sort of saying, it gets sort of stuck in that rut of working really hard, trying to earn the money, and maybe falling into that trap of just getting onto the alcohol, maybe too much, but still an incredible story, mate. And yeah, I really want to hear more about maybe this transition or this transformation that sort of happened when you did hit rock bottom. Like, where did you start, or what made you realize that, hey, I really got to start to do something about this? And how did you start to put one foot in front of the other, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, the day I hit rock bottom was we were going on a family picnic, and um, I was hungover as usual and just so irritable, and my anger would go from 0 to 100 in zero point 0.2 seconds. So I just fly off the handle all the time, and I just so angry. And mornings were bad because I'd be so irritable and hungover and not feeling good. And we were on a drive to a family picnic, and I'd had these caps made up with my law firm embroidered on them. And I just got this new cap. And we were driving along. The kids were very young in the infant seats in the back. And my wife at the time was putting the heater on for them because it's a bit of a cool morning, but I was hungover and sweating, so I wanted the cool air. We were in this childish, stupid fight of when the other person wasn't looking, turn the heat on, turn the cold on. And we're doing this over and over up the road. And then finally I just cracked the shits and I just wound the window down and I stuck my head out the window. I was like, fine, you win. And I stuck my head out the window and my new hat blew off my head in the air and it landed behind the car. And I looked in the rear view mirror and this Mack truck just drove straight over the top of it. And I was like, it's just lost it. And I did this big U-turn. It was a busy highway type thing, busy road. And I did this big dramatic U-turn and went up and sped up back to get my hat. And when we pulled up to the edge, there was this long grass on the side of the road. And I've pulled the car over it was like single lane, no space either side. And I've pulled it over into the long grass to pull over and jump out and get my hat. And when I did, I couldn't see, but there was a big drop off the edge of the road. And so the car started sliding off the embankment and we hit this sort of ledge and we're teetering on the side of the car. It was like, when we came to a stop and the kids are screaming and my wife's screaming. She's down underneath me because I'm looking down and she's below me and I'm hanging onto my seatbelt and I had to crawl up out of the window and try and like pull the car up with my hands to try and hold it. And while she got the kids out and everyone crawled out the window and then cars stopped to help. And
Wow.
yeah, so I could have killed everybody and it was a real shock. And I saw my children crying and so frightened. And I felt like such a scumbag. And then the police came and like they breathalyzed me and everything. And I wasn't over the limit, thankfully. I was just so hungover though from the night before. The whole road got closed off and all these motorists were annoyed at me. And the tow truck came and they had to like tie a cable to the car and like wedge it back up onto the road.
Yeah.
And it was just this huge scene and everybody was pissed off at me. And I just felt like everyone just seems so angry with me all the time. I can never make anybody happy. And this had been building for years. And then I had this little moment where I went down into the long grass behind this little tree and sat down while they recovered my car. And I remember just breaking, just cracking. It just was sort of the end for me where I couldn't, the thoughts that I were having were, I can't go on. I can't go on like this. And I just basically wept. I don't think I cried in years and just wept and just had this moment of this sort of version of Aaron isn't really working. It's just I'm suffering so much. I'm making other people suffer. I nearly killed everybody today. He's got to go. I just don't want to be this guy anymore. Yeah. And it was sort of like this feeling of just giving him up. Like he's gone. He's over. I'm done with him. And so it was like a promise straight away to not drink anymore. Just happened like that. I was like, right, I'm not drinking, and I'm going to get myself on track. And so I nearly went insane in that first week of not having liquor. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need help. Like, because the thoughts that were, I could just numb. The anesthetic wasn't there. My medicine wasn't there. I had no way of coping with, and all this stuff coming up. It was terrifying. So I called a psychologist, made an appointment, went down there, started getting some therapy, and she referred me. She suggested meditation. Look, Aaron, because I said, my mind, I can't stop it. What's going on? It's just attacking me, and I don't know how to manage this thing. I just haven't dealt with it for so many years. So she referred me to a meditation teacher. I went and did a transcendental meditation course, and I chose that because Russell Brand was an alcoholic and a recovering addict, and he'd mentioned it. So I did that, learnt some meditation. Then I thought, okay, that's for the mind, of getting some therapy just to help with this transition into this new me. And now I need to work on the body. So I started getting really into movement, and that led to Ido Portal. I went along to a seminar of his in Sydney and started learning handstands and soft acrobatics, calisthenics, all body weight stuff, soft practices. And I just became addicted, and it just sort of, it kept my mind off drinking. So I just started training a lot and found some breathwork events, got into that. I connected with Wim Hof kind of before he blew up and became really popular. I went to an event down in Victoria with him. There was only like 25 people there
Yep.
before he was really massive, and hung out with him for 4 days in the wilderness and did my first ice bath and all that stuff. Anything that I could do that was for my health and would help me not drink anymore, I was doing it. So that was kind of the pathway into these health modalities that I'm doing now.
Yeah, wicked, mate. What an incredible story and what a transformation that's sort of happened out of that. I'm starting to join the dots now. So the mutual friends that we have, how you might have met a few of them, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Wow, what a change. So you were still working as a lawyer during this time of, you're starting the meditation practice, getting into sort of movement and Edo, and then, the Wim Hof stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So that was around 2016, 2015, 2016, that all started to happen. So I kept that up for a while until eventually I had enough clarity that I started to think maybe I was maybe the skill well developing skills in new areas led to new connections and people asking me to help them. So it started to open up teaching opportunities and sharing opportunities until it got to the point where I thought, oh, maybe there is another path for me because, as I say, I was never in law because of I had a passion for legislation or reading case law. It was Tom Cruise, and I thought, well, why not explore a new path? And an opportunity came up to sell my practice.
Yeah.
Some people wanted to buy it, made me an offer, and that was complicated through COVID. COVID hit right when we had that transaction happening, but yeah, I was happy to jump at an opportunity, take on a new challenge, and also having gone through and made it through some depression and some fairly dark times, as well as some personal tragedy. Just having compassion for men that are experiencing those things, and now I've just got such a strong desire to do something more benevolent than just help property developers make another
Yeah.
10 million.
Yeah.
I want to help human beings suffer less. So
Yeah, yeah. And you've got such great experience yourself, mate. Like, I think coming from that background and being in that industry, plus the life experience you've had, and going through those challenging times to bringing yourself up to sort of where you are now with, your own practice, with your own health, even just how you show up, mate, every day on social media. Like, it's such play, such fun. Even with your kids, mate, it's inspiring and it's great to see. So, full credit to you, mate. You should be very proud of, that journey that you've been on. It's incredible.
thank you. Yeah, I have to remind myself to be proud. It's nice to hear that because sometimes I'm really hard on myself, and yeah, if I'm not getting these results, I think it's so easy to look upstream at these people that are doing better than you all the time, and you forget that how far you've come and the impact you might be having. So it's always nice to be reminded of that.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I'm still curious more about this sort of transition, like, to give up, that practice of law and that, that safety net that you've had and then move into now being a coach and now helping, other people with training and stuff. Like, how have you found that? And like, were you worried about what other people sort of said? Did other people sort of judge what you were doing at the time?
Well, I think part of the healing process for me, if you want to call it that, or the transformation was um, I did have to spend a bit more time in solitude and break away from some of the unhealthy circles. So initially I tried to keep up going to the pub and going into the same environments with people because most of my mates were big drinkers but eventually I got to a point where I just didn't enjoy those environments anymore, and I wanted to be in healthier environments and around different people. So the people I started to associate more with were more in these circles and more encouraging of this sort of work and these sorts of decisions. So I had that encouragement and support, and I just started to respect. I guess my value system changed, and the people that I chose to listen to changed, and all of a sudden, people I used to go to for advice, I'm like, well, you can teach me how to make millions of dollars as a lawyer. You can't teach me how to be happy or find inner peace or how to do a handstand. So I started just listening to different people, and that made it a bit easier to disregard the critical looks or the smirks that I would get from the corporate people. I would tell that,
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave and teach people how to do handstands and how to meditate. That they don't make much money, Aaron. You do realize this. What are you doing? You're
Yeah.
throwing away your career and all of this. Um, but for me, there's a great line I read a book by Carlos Castaneda, um, and the teachings of Don Juan, and he says, if the path has no heart, then leave the path.
Mm.
So for me, the path has to have a heart, and I think the problem with growing your awareness is you can't unsee things or unfeel things once you've felt them.
Mm.
And once you're aware, there's a lot more to life than just going to work, making dollars, just sort of being very one-dimensional about things. It's just really hard to be like that ongoing, and so I just craved more depth and greater connections. So for me, it wasn't actually that hard a decision.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely been the right decision, mate. It looks like you're thriving so much more now. Not that I knew you when you were a lawyer, but just by the sounds of things and just sort of seeing you from afar, congratulations on that. Who are some of your mentors? Like, who are some of the big people that maybe have inspired you or helped you on this journey?
I would say my mum is one of my most inspirational mentors, and she's a housewife. She was a devoted housewife, a terrific carer. But I was there the other day and I was watching her hang the washing up on the line, and I absolutely despise doing washing. I hate hanging washing on the line. And she's the sort of person, I was watching her. You have these moments where you really see somebody, the way that she was in the garden, the way the light was coming down on her, and she's hanging the sheets or whatever, and she's sort of just humming a little tune to herself. It's so peaceful and joyous and happy, doing stuff that I absolutely despise. And so she can just find so much joy in the mundane, and I really admire that. And crave that for myself. So she's a constant reminder about how happiness isn't far away. It's right
Yeah.
there in front of you, washing the dishes or doing what needs to be done. And she's just got this rhythm where it's just one thing to the next. She just doesn't really stop and keeps the house beautiful and everyone's cared for, and she looks
Mm.
after everyone, and has her own interests too, and just a beautiful balance. And she didn't go and do courses on life improvement. She's never had a life coach or anything like this. She's just sort of
Yeah.
naturally that way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Um, she's number one. And then, of course, people that have had a big impact on me, Ido Portal, meeting him and training with him at a couple of events really changed how I looked at fitness, which was always coming from footy.
Yeah.
You lift weights and do cardio. So all of a sudden, you're introduced to handstands, locomotion, soft acrobatics, and given permission to explore many modalities and create your own fusion. So I'd never seen it presented like that, and his blend of humor and wit and intelligence, someone so highly intelligent, but also just an absolute weapon and so smart. That had a profound effect on me in terms of the physicality of life. And then, Wim Hof would be one of my heroes. Just getting to hang out with him personally for 4 days was so much fun. And just to see the playful, light, childlike qualities in a guy that's in his 60s was just, oh, okay, you don't have to turn into a grumpy old shit. You can be cool and playful and light and inspiring and happy. So, yeah, I would say him as well.
Yeah, wicked, mate. Definitely a great great lot of mentors that you've got there, and I've connected with both Ido and Wim Hof as well in my journey too. And yeah, they're both characters in their own way, but both very inspiring. So I can definitely relate to that, mate. this transformation that you went through, like how quickly did things change for you when you started to do more meditation and then you started to get into movement, like this new version of Aaron, like how quickly do you think this transition happened?
Well, I think it's paradoxical because as I hit rock bottom, uh, a version of me died and a new version was reborn in an instant, in a moment. Yet that only came about after 5 or 6 years of intense alcoholism and intense suffering. So I think it's a difficult question to answer because there's two opposing truths that are both correct. That things take time for change to happen, but then change actually happens the moment you decide. There's an instant when it happens, and you feel it through your whole body. You're like, oh, this is a different me. I'm not doing that anymore. Something's changed internally. So the process of recovery from alcohol was definitely. I set a goal to not drink for it started off right. I get through 30 days, and then I got to that, which was brutal. And then I thought I felt so much better, and I'm like, well, I've kind of it's kind of like having skin in the game. I don't want to lose this run. I don't want to just throw that away because that was so dreadfully difficult. I had trouble sleeping. Uh, my mind was really difficult to manage. I was having withdrawals, and it was really hard. So the deeper in I got to sobriety, the more I had to lose because I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. And
Mm.
I set a goal. If I went 1 year with no 1 year no beer, if I went 1 year no alcohol, I would put the money that I'd normally spend on liquor in an account, and at the end, I would buy myself this motorcycle that I'd always wanted, a Ducati motorcycle. So I put it in this account, and then at the end of the 12 months, I had enough money to buy a freaking motorbike, and I bought a Ducati Scrambler. It was black with this gold stripe on it. It was so cool. And I was so proud of that achievement because it wasn't me just buying dumb shit anymore like I was as a lawyer. I could just had money, so I bought things, and it didn't mean anything to me. Um, but this one was really meaningful because of the sacrifice I had to go through to earn that, and the discipline and the just the cravings and just overcoming them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I incentivized myself to get through that year, and I took that run even further, and eventually I'd come to relax that and come back to drinking only on special occasions like weddings or when a long lost friend is in town or something, and having some rules around it, but
Yeah.
coming back to a more moderate position, which I felt I could do after breaking
Yeah.
the hoodoo, getting that demon just getting off. But he's never far away. I can feel him lurking in the shadows, stalking me, and I know I have to be careful. And I have deliberate periods of sobriety now. I just did a dry January and a dry February.
Mm.
Then I'll relax it for a bit. We'll take a holiday, have a few drinks, and then I'll get back onto my program and
Wow.
make sure I flex that discipline because it can run away from me.
Yeah, exactly,
So
mate.
it's an ongoing process. The physical transformations, as you know, like muscle, 6 to 8 weeks, you see changes in your body. And I was so nutrient deprived that when I started training and eating well and not drinking, I had quite a rapid. I had these newbie gains where I had abs and I got ripped pretty quickly because I'd been just treating myself so poorly, just eating. I didn't I just ate whatever, fries and burgers and gross stuff. And so flipping that all around, I had really immediate 6 to 8 weeks changes physically. The skill work took a lot longer. And then just the mental side of things, I felt within 2 weeks of meditating, felt a dramatic reduction of that monkey mind. The thoughts that were driving me nuts started to fade and settle, and I could drop into a deeper sense of peace within myself. And I developed an ability to watch the thoughts and not be the thoughts and
Mm.
just observe my life from this, like it's a movie on a screen. And that just gave me this extra level of patience with my children, with my family, with my loved ones, with my staff.
Yeah.
So that was an ongoing process, but I saw improvement within 2 weeks.
Mm.
And then that just got better and better.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Can I inquire about your meditation practice? Like, what does that look like these days?
So I was very strict with the transcendental meditation practice, which is a mantra-based practice. You're given your own private mantra, and by your teacher, and then you do 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. And the process is you just repeat this mantra to yourself in your mind over and over and over, and your brain waves change states from that monkey mind, busy mind, until you eventually settle down into the nice, slow brainwave states where you can feel very well relaxed. And it's that state just before sleep where things are very lucid and calm, and the mantra sort of fades away, and you just have this blissful, timeless, peaceful experience. You don't always get there. Sometimes you're more agitated than others,
Yeah,
but that's sort of what happens
yeah,
some of the time.
yeah.
And yeah, so these days I do a combination of styles, that plus more breath related meditation, just following the breath,
Mm,
and try to sit. I'm not as strict with it. I don't always do it twice a day anymore.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can do this
Mm.
once a day or every few days or as I need now.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. What about your movement practice? What does that look like at the moment?
So I have a coach, Jackson Lanarn, out of Movement 4 in Brisbane, and I've been with him for a few years. So he's from the movement culture scene, and he's trained
Yeah,
with Ido previously as well. And so I tend to work in 8-week phases, and I let him program for me, because it's just great to have a coach and somebody overseeing your training. They can spot things you can't, especially somebody that's a bit further along than you. So right now it consists of I'm starting the one arm handstand journey. So I'm doing 3 sessions of that a week, and I do like an upper body session that usually involves rings,
yeah.
with mobility, and also a lower body session once a week. And then I do a bit of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and go for surf and things like that as well.
Beautiful, mate. Sounds like the perfect mix. I like it.
It's good. It's good. I love it.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Beautiful. I'd like to maybe switch gears now and talk a little bit about what you're doing in terms of work and how you're helping others. So, you've been on this incredible journey yourself, and then you've decided that that's going to be now something you want to do to help other people. What sort of things are you teaching others? How do you work with others? What's happening?
Yeah, so I've built a few courses. One thing that the first online course I built was a locomotion course, because when I was wanting to explore that years ago, I found it difficult to find resources at the time online. So that to me seemed like an area that could use some resources. So I built a course, and yeah, that's still selling today, and it's called Locomotion Flow, so people can learn. That's just purely locomotion. Um, and then after that, I built a rings course, just the basics, how to use gymnastic rings, turn them into flows.
Hmm.
And then I've been doing online training for people, like custom programming, just like what I receive from my coach.
Yeah,
And then more recently, I built an app, which is an online training platform that has follow along workouts for handstands, rings, mobility, daily soft practices, lower body work,
yeah,
calisthenics, gymnastics, a bit of yoga, that sort of stuff. So that's like a monthly subscription type thing people can jump in on and become part of the community and
yeah,
get feedback. And so, yeah, that was a big project that I did last year. So I'm kind of just managing those at the minute. Um, and yeah, my partner and I are actually in the process of investigating she's a yoga teacher. So
yeah,
we're just in the process of acquiring a yoga studio. So that's in the early stages. So we're going to create, add some movement work into that as well. So we'll have some a bricks and mortar business again,
yeah,
just to complement the online stuff, which I've been focusing on just for the last couple of years,
yeah,
and something I want to learn more about and go explore more for my own education is mental health, particularly for men. So next week I'm doing a mental health first aid certificate, because one of the battles I've had is being in my 40s now, mates calling up, going through divorce, breakups, drug or alcohol addiction. It's sort of that age bracket now. When I turned 30, everyone was getting married. I was going to weddings. Everyone was happy.
Yeah.
Now I'm in my 40s. Everyone's getting divorced and they're going through family court proceedings, and there's just so many problems. And I've had so many calls in the last 6 months to a year, guys that are really in dark places and really hurting. So I want some training around that, and this first aid certificate I'm doing is for that. It's to train you on how to have those difficult conversations with people and help connect them to the right resources, and be aware if they're having a breakdown. And it's suicide prevention, that sort of stuff. So I want to explore that more and add some quality education and have some practical tools in my toolbox, because I feel like that's going to be a growing area as the world gets more complicated and the screens and the online digitization of things impact more on mental health.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. I love the sound of that. I think there's definitely room or definitely space for that, not just here in Australia, but like you say, worldwide. I think mental health is becoming such an important factor. And I think, COVID probably made things worse, but I think we're on a downward slide with everything going on. With your experience and like everything you've been through, and I really think that you've come out, such a positive influence, where you are now, mate. What sort of lessons have you learned, or what sort of things could you maybe share with men that are probably reaching that point in their life? They're at that 40 years old, that midlife, and maybe they're feeling, overwhelmed by it all. What sort of things could you offer or share, do you think?
I think for men in particular, a sense of community and connection is absolutely crucial. So finding an activity that you enjoy that connects you with other people, not just men, but also women. But when I started jiu-jitsu many years ago, this was after my divorce, and I was single and alone, and I was a bit intimidated by the idea of starting jiu-jitsu, and there was a gym right near my office, but I worked up the courage to go in, and it was very confronting because there was a big, hairy, sweaty, bikey guy. He looked like there was a Harley out front, and he had tattoos all over him and looked like a bouncer. And first lesson, day one, he's laid on his back. We're practicing what's called like guard retention. And he laid on his back and opened his legs, and then he invited me in with his hands and his eyes, like, come on, jump in. And it's more or less, I'd only known that to be a sex position, some sort of, missionary sex position. So I go in and he wraps his legs around me, and we have 6 minutes of basically cuddling in Japanese kimonos, sweating on each other. Anyway, I did this for an hour. I was in the legs of these men for an hour and put my legs around them. And at the end of it, initially I felt, homosexually challenged, and because this is a strange feeling for me. And then at the end of it, though, I had this buzz and this incredible feeling, this energy came over me, and I wanted to just hug the guys and shake their hands and just thanking everyone. And I realized as I was driving home that I hadn't had much human contact. I hadn't had anyone hug me or hold me, gone through a divorce, and I was so very isolated. And it's not a homosexual thing. It's just the contact of another human somehow plugs you back into the fact that, we're all here on this planet living these lives that appear to be separate, but we're all connected by an energy that runs through us all, that is universal, and that there's love in that. And so I would say for men that it's so easy to get isolated, and men don't like asking for help, don't like asking for directions. But yeah, if you put yourself in environments where you can connect like that, and it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, it could be anything. I would say that would be number one key, because that's probably what I missed out on for too long and just got too isolated.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? You sort of go from that sort of growing up and playing team sports with your mates and all that sort of stuff, and then when the career starts, it's sort of that sort of stuff drops off quite quickly, doesn't it? It becomes hard to have those interactions, and like that roughhousing sort of stuff with guys. Like I think they've done lots of research around kids, young boys wrestling and playing and stuff like that, and what it does for their mental health and what it does for their mood. So many positive outcomes. Whereas boys that are sort of isolated who play games on their computers or whatever, just a totally different sort of person. So I agree that I think community is such a huge part of that. So yeah, it's being able to find those groups and being able to connect with as many people as you can. Yeah, I like it.
It's a big barrier for men. I know for me, I don't know why, because part of me recognizes I can get lonely and that isolation isn't healthy. Yet sometimes I get invited to things and I have this, ugh, I don't want to go to that. Oh, ugh, you
Yeah,
know? And I think, but intellectually that'd be good for you. But then, so why am I resisting it? Why don't I want to go? And it's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy that, okay, the more isolated and alone I become, the greater my social anxiety becomes, and the more reluctant I am to be around other humans. And it's just so easy to doom scroll on your phone. We've got these little entertainment devices now that just distract us for hours on end. You can just go home on your own and watch UFC reruns or watch movement clips and just blow 3 hours on YouTube or Instagram.
been there, done
it's
that.
instead of going out and being with human beings, which is a bit of an effort, and you do have to get a bit uncomfortable, and you might not feel like going, but then every time afterwards, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, mate. Do you train with anyone now? Do you actually have training sessions that you do with other people, or?
Occasionally, I've just been traveling. I took a
Yeah.
year to just travel in my caravan last year. So I sold my house and I bought this amazing caravan and just I wanted to do some travel. So I was traveling mostly alone, but I was dropping in and seeing people, and I do sort of informal sessions with people.
Mm.
But I've got an online coach, and so I've got my programming that I'm always working on. But then, of course, jiu-jitsu. Now that I'm back in the Lullaby on the Sunshine Coast, I've joined a jiu-jitsu club again, and I'm training with them. And I've got a few mates that we do sessions occasionally, and my beautiful partner
Yeah,
loves to train as well. So we're always training together as well, and the kids, getting them involved. I like training at home because it gets them involved as well.
yeah, awesome. Yeah. How old are your kids, mate?
11 and 9, yeah, and
Yeah,
then I've got two stepdaughters that
beautiful.
are a bit younger as well.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I suppose your relationship with them must have changed a lot as you've sort of changed yourself as well. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that last part.
Yeah, no, I was going to say your relationship maybe with your kids and like you being a dad and even now like a stepdad as well. That's obviously changed on your own journey as well now.
Well, absolutely, and that was my fear. Trying to take action while they were still infants, so that as they're growing up in those value formation years, that they have a really present dad who's there and he's well balanced, and um, giving them a good role model who
Mm.
is a good man and he can provide, but he's also healthy and kind and he's a good partner. And I just want them to have that model so that they have the best chance possible growing up. And that old version of me who's having tantrums and punching holes in walls and
Yeah.
just drinking all the time and hating his work and not enjoying it, not being fulfilled. I didn't want to be I didn't want to be that to them.
Yeah.
So they're a huge motivational piece in the puzzle to have a standard for yourself,
Mm.
because it's really a standard for them. So yeah, I'm very grateful for my children for that.
Yeah. Yeah, wicked, mate. I like it. I think that you obviously are a great role model, and like to have a dad like yourself, someone who's like conscious about health and well-being, conscious about I suppose your mindset and meditation, and just like looking after yourself, like that in itself, I think, is a rare thing. And the fact that you're home too, and the kids are getting to see you more often. Whereas if you were in the lawyer's firm, I'm sure they'd hardly ever see you. So,
Yeah,
what a great way! What a great way to be brought up, and what a great way to have your dad there at home and be such a role model or such inspiration. Mm.
Yeah, thank you. And then there's just new challenges. Just earning a living is always a challenge. So
Mm.
I've got the new challenge now of trying to figure out how do you do these online. I had no tech background, and trying
Yeah.
to sell online courses or online coaching. It's a whole new game to me. So I'm trying to learn that, and it's challenging.
Mm.
And so it's just a different set of problems. But I think you just I'm grateful to be upgrading my problems to ones like I'm choosing these problems,
Yeah.
and they're areas of interest that I want to learn and grow in. So it's easier to apply yourself and go through the struggle of
Yeah.
figuring out how do you turn this stuff into income and money, and how does
Yeah.
that all work and come together. So which is just an ongoing process because the landscape's changing all the time and the market changes and
Yeah.
fitness fads come and go, and so you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out how do you position yourself in all of this and offer something that has that what's that Japanese word, ikaji, I think it is, or something like that, where it's overlapping your skills and talents with what the world needs, with does it pay you, and getting that
Yeah.
getting that
Yeah.
mixture right. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm playing with at the moment.
Yeah, nice, mate. I feel you with that. I'm in the same position. It's like trying to grow the business and have that financial security. And I've got a young daughter myself, and I want to be there for her and watch her grow up and, be an inspiration to her and teach her how to survive in this crazy world, and stay healthy. So it's like trying to juggle five balls at once, isn't it? There's so many things we have to do, and there are certain sacrifices we have to make. But I think, coming back to our own health and well-being, it's such a important part of it. I think, if you don't have your health, how can you show up and how can you be the best version of yourself to help others and to support your family and all that sort of stuff? And me looking in at what you're doing, mate, I think it's working for you. Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yeah, mate. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you do, whereabouts can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, agrifforama, AGRIFFORAMA, Aaron Griffiths. Instagram's kind of like a bit of a hub to connect with people these days.
Yep.
Or my website, aarongriffiths.com.au. You can Google me and I'll probably pop up,
Yeah. Yep.
um, along with some soccer player from Europe or something. I don't know.
Okay, not the soccer player, the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Is there any last words of wisdom that you want to leave with, men in their midlife, that you can reach through this audience, mate?
Yeah, I had this once when I went on a surf trip, and I had this weird feeling. It was right after the Malaysian airline went down, that Malaysian airline
Yeah,
that just
yep.
went missing. Well, I was booked on the next flight, the next Malaysian Airlines flight, to do a surf trip to the Maldives. So I was slightly nervous that my plane was going to go missing. And so I'd read in Richard Branson's book that every time he does the hot air balloons around the world, he writes sort of like a death note to his kids, and writes a goodbye note just in case.
Hmm.
So I got my pad and paper and I went to write them some final words just in case, and put it in an envelope somewhere, and you know, just my wife would find it or whatever, and just in case my plane went down. And I thought, okay, this is a difficult task. What do I say to my kids? Like, what, they're little children that could possibly guide them. And I had a few drafts of stuff like, well, always tell the truth and always do this and always do that and eat well. And I screw that up, and it just sort of came back to, I love you, and that was more or less it. Just know that I love you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can really tell anybody, because we're all so unique in our life situations and our problems. But I think if you can just come back to some sort of love, for yourself and your family and your friends, then find that path with the heart, and let that be your guide.
Yeah, awesome, mate. That's a great message. I like it a lot. Mate, I greatly appreciate your time. It's been awesome to connect finally and have a chat and hear a little bit more about your journey and your story. And I look forward to maybe catching up again sometime. Hopefully, I'll get over to the East Coast and better come and do some training with you at some point.
That'd be fantastic. I'd absolutely love it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Midlife Mavericks podcast. Remember, your journey to optimal health and vitality doesn't end here. You're just getting started. Keep embracing the mindset of a maverick. Stay committed to your visions, values, and goals. Continue taking meaningful steps towards a life filled with energy, purpose, and fulfillment. Until next time, keep thriving and living life on your own terms.